I offer my Japanese shamisen music songs as a solvent for that solid rock of sorrow to soften. So I hope this will be a beautiful synthesis of whereas wild edge of sorrow into the perhaps sensory experience of the performance. Just let me say a few things about what I'm into these days. This Japanese concept called ma, ma is this intentional silence between notes. The music I will play belong to a genre called Edo Hauta. These short songs are centered on the fleeting nature of life and the subtle emotional textures. In Japanese athletics, we focus on ma, so this is space, intentional space between notes. I encourage you to listen. As you listen, I invite you to imagine that the silence as the rock of your resistance and the notes as water finding its way through the cracks, which Vera talks about. And also, you will hear the characteristics of this shamisen buzzing resonance called sawari in Japanese. It is not a clean or perfect sounds on purpose. So it's a complex, textured, and raw. This mirrors what Vera calls the roughness of the soul. Just as the most beautiful music comes from the friction and the buzz of the strings, our own growth comes from the friction of our lives. So the perfection within the imperfection, so to speak. So I will play this piece called Aki no Yo, autumn night, long autumn night. Then lyrics speaks of that night that feels endless. You know that the feeling sometimes feels like forever, lasting forever. Not because of the clock, but because of the longing, deep longing of the heart. It describes the persons counting the hours on their fingers, caught between waking and sleeping, and then bathed in the cold light of a full moon, perfect moon, while waiting for someone who never arrived. So I invite you to close your eyes and listen to the perhaps wild edge of the strings. As the music plays, maybe you can identify the image or vibration that matches your current internal weather.
Yo.
訪る者は金ばかり数る指も熱をきつわしゃ照らされているわいな。Perhaps just one inquiry. Where does the music find a space in you that feels solid? Yeah, solid and or maybe yeah, this idea of the intentional silence between notes. It might be a bit new concept to the Westerners or modern practitioners. Listen to the silence. Perhaps don't get into too conceptual, just you like it?
Yeah, very touching indeed. And kind of what imagery came to me, a visual, it was almost like this person kind of weeping over a love that's gone and never coming back. And every chord was kind of almost like a knife piercing through their heart more and more. And yet at the same time, it kind of created this space to be in the sorrow. And there was this space created while it was grippingly, painfully sad. And I was wondering even if kind of this space that the notes created in between, it's almost a little bit like what Weller was writing about in terms of holding, hitting the bottom, that if we just stay and stay with the music, it kind of allows me to more and more hit the bottom and be with it because I can do it. It's almost unbearable, but somehow I can just bear it. The music allowed all of us to sit with the silence, and yet because it continues, we're not spiraling down. And, the sphere, like Weller writes about it too, we have that if I sit with it, I will spiral down to this grotto and never come up. And therefore, I have to defend myself and not feel those feelings because it could be too much. That it almost allows us to kind of touch that sorrow and be with it, but yet not kind of just spiral down.
The sorrow and the grief is ever present. So it's not like even if I really went and it's not going to go away, I guess. And so I think the music really, for me, helped just support that space, that it's not that I have to go all the way to the bottom and then not feel the grief or the sorrow. It's how to integrate it into just the being present with it. So and I think the music really helped find that space, and to find the beauty in the sorrow and the grief, that it's not anything to run from, that it's now a part of my being. And where is the space for that within me? How do I express it? How do I be in the world holding that sorrow? Not just my own, but once, as I feel my own, then the heart opens and there's the collective sorrow. So that was another part of the experience for me. It really touched that place where I'm holding the sorrow all the time.
I think you used the words complex, textured, and something else. But I think that's that. It just shows the complexity and depth of sorrow, which we avoid, or not, our culture avoids.
We avoid, and it's too much. And, and it's also, if we don't allow that, like Weller writes, we live in the flatlands because there isn't the depth of experience, in chapter 6. I'm just thinking that in some ways, maybe that's kind of what we're also talking about, that in the notes, if we allow the sorrow, the greater the grief, the deeper the joy, quote.
Yeah, I never analyzed the thing. Just I feel so much beauty and just my subtle body respond to this kind of music, So I see that, again, this imperfection or sorrow or between these gaps and all these things or frictions and so much juice in it. I just picked this particular music for this purpose. There are many different kind of texture of the music in this genre, but in terms of lyrics, like that kind of deep longing or the unfulfilled love, something we don't want to go there. But then music allows us to see the beauty in that reality, nature of fleeting world and nature of human beings. And a lot of metaphors. Did I read the translation of this? Of course, literal translation and like haiku style. Like a bright moon, full moon, endless night. Only the temple bell calls. Most of these songs are sung by geisha, the person, lady of the art, longing for her beloved. Then she was waiting for him, also her lover, but then only temple bell calls while I wait alone. Then, waiting, night, then waking and sleeping, counting time on the tired hand. So there was a custom to count the time by counting the tatami mats. Only moonlight holds me fast. That's the gist of this song. So in this kind of genre, in Japanese aesthetics, this kind of feelings are elevated into the qualities. Something in the Western world we don't want to go. Not to mention the elevating into the quality and seeing beauty in it. Yeah, there are lots of Buddhist concept idea behind this. Some kind of renunciation, some kind of giving up this fleeting world and the realization of impermanence, and yet longing continues. That's kind of human paradox she lives, and we actually live, but we don't want to acknowledge that we are living in that paradox. So everything is impermanence. Therefore, moment become precious and beautiful. Mono no aware is that sort of qualities I'm talking about, one of the qualities. This translation of mono no aware is a pathos. This is like a aha moment or the bittersweet or the sweet sadness. Sweet sadness, that's kind of contradictory, the phrase itself, but the sweet sadness found in the transient beauty, impermanence. So that is called mono no aware.
If I'm watching a sunset, where it kind of so quickly, it kind of disappears. Could that be a moment where you're really in the awe and just admiring it, and it's so transient?
Little bit different from mono no aware, though. Also wabi-sabi in the Western sense. For example, full moon, there's a lot of haiku and poetry. Very famous haiku poets. He said, without the clouds, cannot see the beauty of full moon or something like that. So we appreciate the full moon, not the complete bright full moon or the complete sunset, but then little bit of clouds cover the full moon. So that's then passing. That is an expression of mono no aware kind of. That's how I feel as a Japanese. You know what I mean? It's not the perfect sunset and come and go. So that's the recognition of impermanence, in Buddhism sense. But
Yeah.
We elevate that one to the beauty, to the point
Yeah.
of this sweet
Yeah.
transitory stuff. Even this spiritual longing, each of us has that spiritual burning longing without being completely fulfilled. I don't know, just appreciate that longing, burning. Of course, we want to fulfill, but not necessarily everything can be fulfilled, right? But then, see, we can be present with that.
Is that every time I've been in sorrow with other people, but when it's sorrow for someone I love or the family or deep sorrows, some big change has come within it, like within the ashes of the sorrow. And so one of those for me was taking refuge, was finding even Dakini's whispers that grew out of sorrow, out of like a deep place of sorrow and dealing with it. And I look back, that's not even expected. I can't, it's not as if you make the plan, it's just some big change comes, some energy picks you up and you move forward. You keep that grief. And a great teacher used a word who said that you savor your grief. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like when it's with you, it's as if you kind of see some things brighter. Your vision has some clarity and it's still there. It doesn't go away, but your path changes. And maybe that's part of that accepting of the impermanence that lets you make those changes when time comes.
Allowing to be touched, being open to be touched and moved. And therefore, for that to take place, I cannot control it. Unexpected things came about. Porousness, maybe, or openness to be moved and touched, even if it's not exactly what I was hoping.
I think because grief is, maybe because it's so intense, it really is. I mean, I think about grief and loss as being a big, like it just cuts through. And so that's where I think some of the, maybe not some, or I don't want to qualify it, space arises for something new to emerge, because whatever you've been holding on to, it just goes. And like we've been saying, you can't control it or fix it or move it. And so you're in this place of spaciousness, of vulnerability, or of openness, like when your heart breaks open. And I think that's the space for however, whether it's a literal change in your path or, your daily life, or, where your heart opens, where your practice opens. So I think that's where some of the beauty comes, that whatever you had was gone. You can't hold on to it. And so what is there.
It takes a lot for us to even be open to recognize what comes with this shift, gift or not. And I think that's maybe what Francis Well also writes about, that we can also close up ourselves, that we are just living in the flatlands. And he talks about this low-grade grief that looks like depression because I just push it away. But it takes a lot of courage to acknowledge the shift.
From the ashes of our grief is maybe how it resonates for me more so. So the ashes is like the alchemy, that we have to have the tears, we have to have the fire, we have our earth, we lose our person in their elements. So for me, it's in the ashes of it.
So you're really speaking to the alchemical process that's part of it.
Yeah.
And the energetic transformation.
Yeah. And that it comes, that's it. And we so often block that. We block the process from letting it happen.
Talking about ashes reminded me of this channel ground teaching. Channel ground or cemetery teaching. This is the Dakini's path we are treading as well in the context of this grief reading book club. Dakini is born in the channel ground and she wears the channel ground clothes, namely the bone ornament, and she use the thigh-bone trumpet, human thigh-bone trumpet as her instrument, and the human skin to play the beautiful music. Everything is coming from the channel ground. It just reminded me, oh, we are talking about the Dakini journey. Channel ground teaching. Yes, of course. Yeah, this is the one.
In the music that Kandra played, that there were happy notes too, if we can just be open for the good things as well.